Hello, and welcome back to Authentically Shawna. I'm your host, Dr. Shawna Burke. I am so excited to have Helene Sula on the podcast with me today. If you missed last week's episode, I'm going to recommend that you pause and go back because last week's episode, I interview Helene's husband, Michael. We talk all about exercise prescription, and writing a prescription plan for the Cotswold Way, which Helene and I are going to talk about. Helene is a writer, a travel blogger, and my favorite follow on Instagram. And can't wait to share her things at the end so that you can also listen to her voice because she's an amazing writer and speaker. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, Helene.
Shawna, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today. So thanks for having me.
Helene and her husband are amazing travel planners as well. So my mom and I went on their inaugural Christmas Market River cruise this December, and it made our month, it made our year. So I'm so excited that we get to do this little chat afterwards.
Yes,
So
me too. You guys were a joy to have on our river cruise. So thank y'all for coming. So that was awesome.
we had the best time. So let's talk about long walks. There are so many ways to exercise. There are so many ways to get our bodies moving. Like, what made you decide that you wanted to take up long distance walking?
Yeah. So I was living in England. So last year I was living in England, and walking is a huge part of the culture in England in general. And I made a friend who was really into walking, and we started walking together here and there. And she really inspired me in a lot of ways about walking and the benefits of walking. And I had always been interested in walking. When I lived in the US, I'm from America. I'm from Dallas, Texas. 2 years ago, I started trying to walk 20,000 steps every day, which was, looking back, was a bit of an obsession because I was trying to lose weight and I thought, okay, I need to walk 20,000 steps every day. I didn't lose any weight, not a pound. And it became this chore. And I fell out of love with it. And after a couple of months, I stopped. I think I did almost 3 months, 90 days of walking 20,000 steps a day, in which I really overtrained. I hurt some previous injuries, but I got interested in doing longer walks when I realized that people of all ages, all fitness levels could do them in a safe way. And really noticing the world around me when I started walking was all these different walks of life, different people were doing these walks. And I felt like this was something that I could accomplish that wasn't crazy, that could help me on my path to being more fit and healthier without feeling like I had to subscribe to hitting a certain number every day or, doing these crazy things. And what really inspired me was, there's a trail, I know we're going to talk about it, called the Cotswold Way in England, which is my favorite place in the world. The Cotswolds are magic in real life. So I discovered that I could do this Cotswold Way hike. And to me, it was so motivating to discover this place that looks like a fairy tale and go on a walk where you walk through a fairy tale. So that's really what motivated me to start training to go on long walks.
And because you were in Oxford already, were there
Yes.
already easy ways to do like training walks for you? Was that a big motivator as well?
Definitely. So living in Dallas, Texas, there's not a lot of walking areas. It's a lot of pavement. But living in Oxford, England, there's tons of trails. England is a hub for walking. There are walking groups. Um, I have all trails downloaded, and you can just find dozens, hundreds of walks, all kinds of fitness levels. If you want to go hike up a mountain, if you want to have a gentler slope, if you want to go through castles, if you want to make sure there's a pub on the way, you can find all of that. And that is really easy to do in Oxford, England.
And right now you're living in winter in the mountains. How has that changed your ability to go on these longer walks? Or is it not difficult because you're still in Europe?
No, it is. So I've lived in Germany, I've lived in England, and now we're in the French Alps. And walking here is different because you have to be more prepared. I could walk out the door in Oxford and find anything. I am in the mountains, and so there is elevation gain, there's snow. All of the walking is much more difficult. The other day, I was like, I just want a little bit of a flatter walk. And that is harder to do, but it's good because, I've kind of been building up my stamina. But I think, you know, in Europe in general, there are easier walks. That is absolutely true. And there are walking paths everywhere here, but it's not as relaxed as it was in England,
Yeah. Snow is a whole other world.
for
I've
sure.
never done long walks in snow. So that's every time I see you on Instagram, I'm like, wow, they're geared up. Like they are ready
Yes,
to go for a
yes,
walk.
exactly. More gear, more things to carry, which is fine as long as you know what you need.
Let's talk more about the Cotswolds Way. So you not only trained for this trip, but you did it solo. What made you decide to want to do this big walk by yourself?
I've always loved being solo. I think that for a woman, I think it's really important to take some time to yourself and reflect for what you want and what you need out of life. I am one of three. I have two sisters. They are 7 years younger than me. So that's a big age gap. And I think I really kind of fostered this love of kind of choosing and doing things on my own terms. And my husband, Michael, and I work together, live together, travel together. So we are together tons. And I think for me, and he really understands this is just another just wonderful thing is I told him that I wanted to do it, and he understood immediately that I wanted to do it solo. And I wanted to do it on my own terms. And in through the training and knowing that I wanted to do it solo, I feel like it really helped me. And we take a lot of walks together. We still walk twice a week together with our dog Millie, but having these opportunities to go by myself and do things that I wanted to do are really beneficial. And I recommend all women to do some things on their own. I think it's really important to foster what you're wanting out of life. I did a lot of reflecting, a lot of thinking, and yeah, I think for a woman it's important. And it makes you feel like a stronger person too to do things on your own sometimes.
And when you were walking, I think you also got to meet other people, right? Like when you were walking on
For
trails,
sure.
I think there's this camaraderie too of you meet people and you get to have these really wonderful, spontaneous, in-depth conversations that
For
I
sure.
think sometimes don't
Absolutely.
happen if you're with someone.
Totally. I actually ended up when I was doing the Cotswold Way hike, it's very typical for people to kind of walk with you here and there. And I definitely think other solo women, um, or just people walking their dog or something like that felt more comfortable because I'm just, yeah, by myself as a woman, which is, non-threatening.
Agreed. So I wanted to ask you what the training process felt like because Michael and I last week talked about how this was a 4-month process, which is not a short amount of time to do something and to really have a plan and commit to it. What did your body feel like as you started to train and as training got more intense and as you were cross training? What changes did you notice and how you were feeling physically?
I think what's really interesting for me, and just to speak quite plainly, was one of the motivators here was I did want to lose weight. And that wasn't the whole of it. I really did want to do this walk. But in the goal of creating this walk, I realized that losing weight would help. And to be just very honest with you, I thought I
Please.
couldn't. I really thought I couldn't lose weight. I tried
Why was
lots of
that?
different things. Think that I never took a look at focusing on myself. And that's
Mm,
why this walk really changed things for me. I have
mm,
so I own my own business. I'm a travel blogger, influencer, author, and I constantly push everything aside, including my health, in order to focus on my business. And I did that for a decade, truly a decade. And if you look at me over time, I gained weight because I put everything in my life aside, including my health, for my business. And I grew my business and I'm proud of it. It's something I love. It's something I do with my husband. I'm so proud of it. But I did lose myself and my health. I did. Because there were some things I have fallen rock climbing. I fell 20 feet rock climbing and I broke my ankle and my leg very early on. That's how I started my blog. And that was kind of the catalyst for starting to gain weight, but it's absolutely not the only thing. And so in taking a step away, when I first started taking a step away to go on 4, 5, 6 hour long walks, I had never done anything like that. And I realized, oh my God, I can step away from my business and what a joy it is. And this changed my whole entire mindset. So,
mm.
what I would do for lunch is I was just eating fast and crazy, whatever was there. Now I take lunch, I take pride in lunch. I make kale chips every day. I love them, but that takes me 20 minutes. Like I have totally changed my mindset about what food is. I have not cut out anything And I realized that I can have everything in moderation. And it's because of this walk. It's because I realized that I can take a step back. I don't have to be on all the time. I don't have to be constantly creating content. I don't have to be writing all of the time, but I can take a step back and focus on the things I love. So that training process really changed my mind so much about what I could get out of my whole life. And
Wow.
it's interesting how one thing can really, really, truly change your life. And that did for me. So when I started training, it started slow. And I worked my way up, but it wasn't just walking. It's so hard on Instagram. People are constantly like, well, I'm walking every day. Well, I'm not walking every day. Today is actually a rest day for me. I have walked, let me just tell you that I have walked not even 2,000 steps today. And that's good. I need those breaks. And I didn't ever allow myself that. And now I realize like it's about, I do an ab workout on Mondays, I'll do cross training on Fridays. I kind of mix it up and it's really so manageable. And I never thought of life like this. I thought this is exactly how I lived life. I lived life like, okay, I've got to do it all right now. No, it's actually more manageable if you can take a step back and realize that life does not have to be all or nothing. And I am an all or nothing person, but when it comes to your health and exercise, it's actually good to take a step back. And this training process really helps me realize that. So Michael devised this plan, which I know you guys talked about. And it's really not hard. It's really simple, but it definitely challenged me, but it wasn't something so out of the box, extraordinary that I felt like I couldn't do. Every week got a little bit more difficult elevation gain. I'd try to do more hills, more mileage, which really led to feeling an incredible, not only peace and confidence in myself, but actually made the hike itself easy.
And I can just thank you so much for sharing that. And I can just say from watching it, not having met you yet and watching you on Instagram go on these walks, it was so amazing for you to be like, okay, I planned out my day where I'm going to go do a 6 hour walk. Like, this is me intentionally carving out this 6 hours to go walk. And I was like, this is so awesome that she's sharing this training process. Cause I think a lot of times we only share the end result. Like, I did
Yes.
this thing, I did the Cotswold Way. I accomplished, or like I did the Camino de Santiago, I did part of the Camino. Like, you do this thing, but like talking, I think about getting there, I think is like the joy of it, right? It's like the joy of the
Right.
preparation to get to do the thing that you like actually wanted to do. But the build up to it is still beautiful. And the fact that you carved out 4 months of your life to get ready for that, I think is the bigger celebration in my mind is look at
Yeah.
this time that you took to accomplish this really beautiful goal.
And I will say I did have a huge support system with Michael. I mean, he was really helped me to figure out, hey, how far in advance should I start training? And at the time it was May. And so, it was perfect. I love fall. So it was like, okay, I'm not going to do this until fall. And he's been really helpful to have like someone that can show me what's working along the way. And that's why it was really important for me because I made a free guide on what I did after the Cotswolds. And I didn't share it until after that because I didn't want to do it all and say, here's this for free. It doesn't work, but I wanted to make sure it worked for me. But now I feel like, it's great because every day I get people telling me that they're walking or, they're training for it and they're using the guide. And it's like, it's so gratifying to know that, you're sharing something that's doable, but also helpful for other people.
What was something unexpected that you saw or experienced while you were training for this walk?
I think I was really first and foremost most surprised at myself from really like taking time off of work. I mean, it's don't do that ever. I mean, Michael and I work most days. I get up at around 7 and I work from 7 to like 11 p.m. And, this has been a huge shift, but I think like physically, I just really felt like stronger in every aspect of my life. And, I didn't really know that this would change me that much. And it's a slow progression, but it definitely just felt like, okay, I can do this and, I can really be healthier. It actually made me choose healthier things along the way as well, because I think it wasn't like I'm choosing this because I want to be thinner. No, I'm choosing this because I want to be able to walk more. And that was a huge mindset shift for me as well. And I think just getting to see myself change physically, it was very slow. It's very, very slow process. I've lost 40 pounds, but that's been over 9 months. That's slow. It wasn't overnight, but I think because I had this goal, it never bothered me that I wasn't physically changing, be smaller at first. But I definitely did notice that I felt better about going upstairs. I could keep up with our dog more, just things like that that really, really changed my life in a good way.
And something that I want to go back and really emphasize that because that wasn't your goal. Your goal wasn't, I want to be able to walk upstairs easier. I want to be able to chase my dog more. It was just a natural thing that happened because you were doing more physically. I think that's something that we kind of forget too, is that moving our bodies helps in all aspects of life. It's not just one for this one very specific thing. It has this nice
Yes.
carryover into lots of aspects.
For sure. Absolutely. And I think too, because I did this overtraining in the past, I think it really helped me understand that like you have to listen to your body. You don't need to do everything all at once. You are not going to get a six pack by just doing a million crunches. It's that's not how it works. It's a holistic thing. And it also is a good way to look at life. Not everything needs to be done all at once, and it's going to take time.
And how has that shifted the mentality of how you write even? What has that done for your writing?
I think that it's given me the ability to find more pleasure and enjoyment in it, in the sense that, I wrote a book. I got a book deal back in 2023, and it was a crazy process. It was, I wrote the book in a year and we published it, and there was lots of things going on. I was moving abroad, renovating a house, and all of this. And I really think that kind of reconnecting with what I enjoy about writing and realizing that I can kind of pause and focus on those things rather than just kind of rushing and getting things done, which is my typical thing is I just want to do everything and get it out of the way so I can do what I want to do. And I'm realizing it's important to stop and find enjoyment in the process of what you're doing. And the same goes for writing, because writing can be very taxing. And it's something I love doing, but I was kind of writing just to write and hurry up and get it done. But now I feel like I can take a step back and enjoy it.
That's amazing. And you're an amazing writer. I really love your narrative. It really speaks to me. So I'm so glad that you're finding so much joy in it because I really, really appreciate the way that you write.
Thanks. That means a lot.
If someone has never done long distance walking, what would you tell them are things that you wish you had known or a couple things you wish you had known before you started that process?
I think there's a lot of BS on the internet, which duh, but I think we're bombarded with things such as you needed to walk 10,000 steps a day, you need to walk 20,000 steps a day. I think I remember I decided on 20,000 steps a day because I saw this video of this girl who did, and she's like, look how skinny I am now. And I think that your goal should not just be that you want to walk because you want to look a certain way. It should be because you have the goal in mind to maybe do a long distance walk, or you have a hiking trail you want to do, because I think it will help push you forward in a different way. First and foremost, I think it's so important to not just walk, to have rest days, to incorporate some other strength training or I did swimming, cross training, biking, whatever it is that you're interested in. But don't just walk, because I think you can get burnt out from that. Like with anything, you can do things too much. And I think, if you feel any kind of aches or pains, listen to your body, take a rest, step back, don't do those things, listen to your body and what it needs. And your training plan might only be 2 months. Mine was 4. Your training plan might be 6 months. Great. We're not all equal. We're all starting in different places. And I would say I was already walking a ton. I live in Europe and I travel a lot. I'm constantly walking around cities in Europe. And I still needed 4 whole months to train up to do this. So I think deciding on something that works for you and tailoring it to you You don't have to be like everyone else. You can kind of find what works for you. But I would definitely find a walk that speaks to you. I know a lot of people, the Camino is a really popular one that really speaks to them. For me, it was the Cotswold Way. Like it was like fairy tale English villages and things like that. Another one on my list is England's Coast to Coast Walk, which I'm reading a book about right now. And the idea to me is just so enlightening. It just like sets my soul on fire to think about like going from one coast of England to the other coast of England. And I think that mindset helps you to train better and more in line for you. And I find myself making healthier choices in my life. I'm like, oh, I don't need to have another drink because I have a walk tomorrow and I want to feel good for that. It's not even about how do I feel or, I don't want to eat those calories because I don't want to be unhealthy. It's more about like, I want to feel good for that walk. So I think, having a plan is, and it's so funny because Michael and I are such planners. Like we always have a plan
You guys
and
are the
like
best planners.
we have a lot. We are planners. We talk about our plan. It's funny because I just posted on Instagram very casually that we're moving back to the US in August 2025. And people are like, what? What? And I'm like, well, that was the plan. So we're following the plan. But I think that I didn't think about that for my health for so long. I just thought, okay, I'll eat healthy and I'll work out, whatever. But I didn't ever sit down and plan it out. And I think having a plan, really asking yourself, what do you want out of life, which I do a lot on my walks, will help you to figure out what walk to do, or if you're interested in kind of having a plan for your health, that it can really help.
You also share a lot about this, which I so appreciate, is the gear, because I think sometimes that is a limiting factor in what you're doing if you don't have the right gear. So would you mind sharing a couple things that you found really helpful to have with you when
So
doing long walks?
first and foremost, you don't need a ton. That's what's so great about walking. And I think there's some like little funny things that people bring. But first and foremost, you do need good shoes. And honestly, my shoes on sale are like $48. That is like, and I'll have them for months. I use Columbia Newton Ridge hiking boots. They are constantly on sale. I don't buy them unless they're on sale. I've had 4 pairs and over many years, and they last. I had no blisters walking over 100 miles in 10 days, no blisters at all. So I highly recommend good shoes and good socks. I also recommend hiking poles. I think people think of hiking poles as something like for older people. They're good for balance. You actually burn 25% more calories using hiking poles, and they help you when you're scrambling uphill. And if you're going down steep hills, Cotswold Way was muddy all the time. Thank goodness I had these hiking poles. And lastly, it's just a backpack, a simple backpack, small enough that can carry your water, some snacks, sunscreen. Really, those things are pretty much all you need, and you can easily go. Oh,
I love that. I know that you guys also published a guide for the Cotswolds. So if someone wants to do the trail that you did, we'll link that as in there as well. It's a paid guide, minimal pay, but I bought one because I also want to do the Cotswolds Way now, having watched you do it. So I think that's a really good resource as well. Is I think you talk about the things that you need. So I think having a good plan is also really nice to see what someone else did and then say, okay, well, Helene did this. I can replicate that. Like these are the places to stay. This is who she hired to
right.
carry her bag. That also is a really lovely thing. It's something that I so appreciate that you also did was create that guide.
I think what was really fun for me in writing that guide is I felt like what what was missing in my experience, what do I wish I'd learned along the way? The biggest thing too was I wish that someone had told me like here's their next spot for going to a pub or seeing a national trust property. Those are you can see them on a map, but it's not as obvious. Like I
Yeah.
I went a mile out of my way, which if you're doing 16 miles in one day is can add up. So I'm glad to know where those things are and how I can find them and help other people find them. So the idea there was I really wanted people to be able to relax and enjoy the hike without having to stress about what's coming next.
How did you feel at the end of every day after you walked?
It was shocking. I was really, really ready to be physically and mentally exhausted. And honestly, it was like elation. I was so excited and felt really proud of myself. And, I always got to stay in these great places, like, little inns with pubs, or I even stayed in kind of a castle-like property. And I think I just felt so relaxed and at peace, especially I was nervous in the first couple of days, but after that, it felt just really a sense of accomplishment and excitement. And I really felt good the entire time, which was because of the training. I never was hurt. I never had a single blister, which is crazy. And it was, just a wonderful experience the whole way through, honestly.
I'm not sure if I'm making this up, but I think you brought a journal with you. Is that true? Did you write in your journal every night?
I did not. I brought a computer
Okay.
though. I did
Okay. Well,
write
that counts.
on my computer. So I actually am a severe carry-on only packer. Like I only have a backpack and that's all I bring. For every trip I've ever done, I've done trips that are 3 weeks long, carry-on backpack. I had a full suitcase. I had a full suitcase and it had funny things in it because my bag was moved every night because I used a short service. I had a full suitcase that I used, and my bag was moved from place to place. And so I didn't have to pack light. So I didn't. And I did bring my laptop, which was great for two reasons. Number one, I would sit and write every night my thoughts, which is how I created this guide. And then I also would watch Harry Potter at night.
I love that. It's the most English thing you could do, right? Is go on a long walk and
Exactly.
then watch Harry Potter. That
Yes.
feels completely like what should have been happening. Michael and I talked a little bit about this, but I was curious to know your thoughts because you're doing a lot of walking. What do you think the difference is between like the American perspective on walking and the European perspective on walking? And how do you think we got to those places?
It's such a good question because it's really interesting in looking for trails in the US. So in Europe, there are quite literally hundreds, if not thousands, of services. And what I mean by that is it's really quite easy to do a circular or through hike where you're going from one place to another. And services are along the way, whether that's food or hotels or um, even getting water. That's very, very accessible in Europe. Now, we know the number one reason I think for this is because it's way more densely populated. If you're doing the Appalachian Trail in the US, it's just not super densely populated. And so you have to backpack. And I have now ruined myself, and I know this, but I've ruined myself because I have no interest in backpacking. I went and did the Cotswold Way and my stuff was moved every day. Now I carried my little backpack with me with my water and snacks, but that's it. I didn't carry my I had a huge bag with my laptop, everything. And so I think the main difference is you're not going to find a lot of the services. There are so many, especially in the UK. Now, this is because I'm English speaking, but natural adventurers, max adventures, hut to hut hiking, inn to inn walking, country walkers. These are all websites that you can go to plan a walk, and they'll do it all for you. It's more expensive, but they will do it for you. And these services are very few and far between. There's quite literally under 5, and most of them are like 3 or 4 days in the US, and they're extremely expensive. I'm talking like I was looking at one in Vermont that's $3,000 for 4 days, and that doesn't
Oof.
include your food. That's just your place to stay,
Might
which
as well go on another
that's
Christmas river cruise.
exactly, right, with all of your food and everything included. So,
Right.
you're really looking at something that's really expensive. So this is why it's harder. It can be done in the US, but you might have to like have a friend help you, or what is lovely about Europe is there are a lot of opportunities for this, and there's a lot of opportunities all year round. So you can, go to Spain in the winter months and you could do, or yeah, in the spring you can do France, in the summers the UK, so things like that.
And when you're on the trails with people, what do you think the mentality is of like taking a long walk in Europe? Why do you think it's accessible? But I also think it's like a mindset thing. What do you think that is?
I think it is, the idea of Europeans do have more time than Americans. I think that the idea of a walking holiday or a cycling holiday is very, very popular because that's not the only holiday they're going to take. So they're going to,
Mm.
sure, they'll go to the beach, sure, they'll go to the mountains, but then they also are still going to make time for a walking holiday. And I think what's really interesting in talking to the others that I've met on trails is it does become kind of an addiction, and you want to go to your next walk and your next walk and plan your next one. And I did ask a gentleman who was absolutely wonderful. I actually was in doing the Cotswold Way, and it was my second to last day, and it had just rained a ton. And there was a sign that was a little confusing. And then here comes this man with his parents. And I said, "Can I walk with you guys?" And we ended up walking 5 miles together. And this was like his 10th hike. And I thought, well, why do you do so many hikes? And he said, "I travel for my health and I travel for pleasure, and this is both." And I just thought that's such a cool way to think about it, because there's so many different kinds of trips we can take. I think the mindset in Europe is they have more free time, they have more vacation time, and they really use it, and they really think about going on taking walking holidays, because they do take the beach trip, the mountain trip, and so forth. And I think, it's important to do something that's challenging as well.
Let's talk about what you're living in the mountains and you're not training for any particular hike at the moment. What does your training program look like at the moment? Are you doing a certain training program? Are you kind of in between training programs? What is that looking like for you at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm still definitely walking. So basically what I do is it's a modified plan from what Michael made me. And I am going to start back up to training February 15th. Actually, I'm going to start back up to train for another hike. But right now what I'm doing is I'm doing 2 long walks a week and then like a short interval walk. So three total walks a week, and then I have 2 rest days, and then I have like a ab workout day and a cross training day. So it's really really manageable, and I really kind of try to listen to myself. We had friends that were in town, and when the friends were in town, I did like a shorter 3 mile hike while they were here because they went skiing, and I don't ski, but I do walk. And
You
then we
sled,
walked.
which is even cooler.
I do sled, exactly. I don't ski, but I should. But I try to listen to myself because I think I can. I have been, I can overtrain. So I think I will continue when I get closer to doing a long distance hike. I want to do another 10-day hike. I will up the ante on the longer walks, but it's really been working for me to have like 3 walks a week and 2 of them be longer. Right now, I'm doing, because the elevation is higher, I'm doing like 9 miles, 8, 9 miles. And they're very challenging because it's a lot of uphill.
And are you doing this in the mountains or are you trying to get to a little bit of flatter or is there no flat?
Mostly this is in the mountains. I mean, sometimes I'll do in the valleys, but 99% of the times, because it's so beautiful, I'm doing it in the mountains. And I'm not doing, crazy elevation, but it's higher elevation and altitude as well. So, it's definitely a challenge, but I think it's been really good for me to continue to build up my stamina by walking in the Alps as well.
Can you share your next walk? What's next
Yes.
on the books?
I haven't definitely decided yet, but I have been looking for a really long time. And I think what I'm going to do, and I'm excited because I've never heard of anyone else doing this one before. So it's called Stevenson's Trail, and it's in France. It's kind of the Provence area of France. Beautiful rolling hills, countryside, some mountains, and lots of little castles along the way. It is, I think it's 136 miles, and it's called Stevenson's Trail, even though that sounds very British. It's because it is. So Robert Louis Stevenson actually took this trail with a donkey and wrote about his travels with his donkey. And that was his first book he published before publishing Treasure Island. But this was his first taste of success. So he's from Scotland, Robert Louis Stevenson, and actually got his heart broken and went to France and rented a donkey and walked this exact trail and then wrote about it, which that sparked my interest. Anything with a writer, I get very, very excited about. And there's lots of trails I want to do in the UK, but because I'm in France, I want to do something in France. And this one really, it's a challenge. It's definitely going to be more elevation than the Cotswold Way, but it looks really beautiful and it kind of checks all the boxes for what I'm interested in. So yeah, I think that's what I plan to do. So actually it'll be 12 days and 136 miles.
Well, I can't wait to follow along.
Thank
I'm so excited. I'm so excited that I get to watch and learn so much. I feel like you
Oh,
share
thank
such
you.
interesting tidbits and nuggets along the way. So I can't wait to follow along on this walk and put another little walk on my bucket list as well.
Well,
Is there
thanks.
anything
Yeah,
else
hopefully.
that oh, I think it'll be amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to share big picture wise about what walking has meant to you. And yeah, I know you've shared a lot, but is there anything that we've missed that you haven't been able to share?
I think the main thing is really that walking has just given me such a different perspective on my own life and how to live it. I think that I can be so focused on what's in front of me, but it's not always what's in front of you that is the next step. You know, you're walking towards a goal and it could be miles away and it's going to be worth it, but also things along the way are going to be interesting along the way. So really enjoying the journey. And I think this has been such a reset for me and my personality. I really think that there was so much of my life that I was trying to cram everything in. And I like living that way in the sense that I like to try to do it all. I like to, suck the marrow out of life, if you will. But I think walking has taught me that sometimes it's important to sit back and enjoy and be present for what you're doing right now. And walking really does that because you're not going to get to the next destination in 10 minutes. It's going to take hours. And that's kind of a beautiful thing to really look around and enjoy. And one thing that has really helped me realize that is going on these walks and enjoying the things that I'm doing, even if it's, I don't particularly love doing an ab workout, or at least I didn't used to. And now I'm realizing like if I do, I'll never forget. I was like, I do understand why I'm doing these ab workouts because when I'm opening the gates, because there's a lot of gates you have to open in England to go through properties,
Mhm.
the twisting motion that's really helping me so I don't strain anything. And I think I've really gained a new perspective on not just living life for pleasure, but finding pleasure even in the difficult things.
You're so good at this. I love the way you talk. It's so good. You're so good at wrapping things up. I so appreciate it. I want you to plug a bunch of things. So in the show notes, we're gonna include the walking exercise plan that Michael created that's free on your blog. We're gonna include the Cotswolds itinerary that you created for a small fee. We're gonna include obviously your Instagram, your book link. Is there anything else up and coming that you'd like to plug?
Think you hit it all. Thank you
We
for
can't
all the
plug your
plugs.
cruise because it's already
No, I
sold
think you
out,
hit it
which is
all.
so exciting.
No, I think you
The
hit it
pay
all. Yeah,
cruising
I
next year and
really
they sold
I
out.
try. I don't have tons of things for sale. I've never been like that. All of my content is free. I have a blog with a million posts. I've been blogging for 10 years, which is crazy. But yeah, I do have that guide, Cotswold Way guide, which is paid just because, it was a true labor of love. But yeah,
I love it.
HeleneBetween.com is the website where you can find it all.
Thank you so much for joining us. And maybe we'll have you on for part two when you do your next walk and you can tell us all
That would be
about it because I would love to have you on for, we'll call it part three of the next walk and journey.
that would be great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. You've been listening to Authentically Shauna with Dr. Shawna Burke. The information contained in this podcast is provided for information purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products or techniques referenced in this podcast, consult your healthcare provider. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.